Hey everybody, this is part two of the special markers and tokens for use in Global and other Axis and Allies games. Sorry for the break there, my memory card decided it was full, so we've purged it, got another one now. So we were talking about the bonsai markers. Essentially what they do is you place them onto a regular infantry. You can't use them on veteran infantry or the Special Naval Landing Force, just a regular Japanese infantry. And that infantry will attack at a 2 for the first round of combat, but that infantry cannot retreat. And the rule that we use with the 1939 Axis and Allies Global is the rule that is used is that you can only have 2 per territory, and you only have 3 of these total. You can't purchase more or anything like that. It's just one of those thematic pieces that allow you to, again, immerse yourself a little bit more into some of the aspects of warfare in World War II that make the game a little bit more flavorful. Okay, so we're gonna sweep away those guys there. And now we're going to bring in some American units. And here we have the Marines. And then we also have some airborne troops, airborne markers. I don't have the specific airborne units handy right here for the Americans. But airborne are typically used with a bomber, and they can get dropped into any non-capital and non-factory place, wherever the range of the bomber will take it. Bomber cannot bomb, obviously, while it's using the paratroopers. And the airborne guys will fight at +1 on the first round of combat, and after that they just act like normal infantry. The Marines are very similar to the Japanese Special Naval Landing Force, and again, you can choose to have them cost a little bit more, or you can put a limit on how many are built. We typically just say 1 per round, regular cost. Again, just to be a bit of a response to the Japanese Marines as well. The airborne troop, we have said it costs 4. So just 1 more, and you get a little bonus and it can fly around. But you do need to buy it specifically for that. We know that some people have paratrooper rules where they just pick up an infantry and fly it wherever, and it acts like a normal infantry. These just add a little bit of flavor again to the game. And away you go. Here's one of my favorite pieces. We have the British radar towers, and they look pretty good. And essentially, the British radar towers are something that will allow you to have an advanced attack on any air battles that come in. So, if you have a radar tower there, the rule that there's a few rules to flirt with. One of them is that your scrambled aircraft will have +1 on the first round of combat for their defense, which will put them at a 5. If they're as the fighters are 4 on defense, give it a 5 for the first round. Really dissuades the Germans from sea lion, and it also helps you out with protecting your navy at the beginning of the game. And it's also very realistic. I mean, Britain was certainly saved by radar and the application of it, which then helped turn the tide, as we all know. So an important piece. Some people kind of balk at it. They say it's a little OP for it. But we charge 15 for this bad boy. So the British have to make a real choice. And it's typically after you've done your first couple of builds and you know that sea lion isn't happening, then you can throw this thing up there and then start protecting any ships that you do build in and around Britain, because as is the case, if the Germans leave the Luftwaffe in the west, the British just can't build any sort of navy without watching it get sunk. The British also have their airborne troops. They've got a special sculpt for them. They look pretty cool. Same rules as the Americans, so $4 and +1 on the first round of combat. And we also have the Commandos. Now the Commandos here, they're an interesting bunch. They can either do an amphibious assault or be dropped into enemy territories. Again, drops into enemy territory can't go into factories or capitals or anything like that. But they are +2 on the first round of combat, and they are 5. So they cost a little bit more, but they do add a little bit of zing because they attack at a 3 on the first round of combat. So there's some neat British stuff. And then we have these bad boys here, the French Foreign Legion. And we like using the French Foreign Legion troops. It kind of spices things up a little bit for Africa. And you can't purchase these guys, but we put a token under each of the French troops that are in Africa and Syria. And those guys we basically flip a coin and we decide if they're going to attack +1 or defend at +1. I prefer the defense at +1 just because the French Foreign Legion really didn't go around kicking butt. They basically stayed put, but they were tough nuts to crack, so to speak. So I'll let you decide what you want to do with those, and you can test it out a couple times. Makes Italy's sojourn into North Africa a little bit more exciting, we'll say. But then the Italians have a response to the French Foreign Legion. You have the Bersaglieri. All right, so their special forces, very similar to any of the other ones, the Guards units for the Russians and whatnot, where they will attack at a +1 on the first round of combat. And again, you can decide if they're going to cost 4 or if you can only build 1 or 2 per round. It's up to you. One per round is pretty good. And the Bersaglieri kind of help out the Italians a little bit as their attack can get a little anemic if they don't control the med. So just again, a little bit of spice for them. All right, and the last country that has some special units here for now is the Germans. So we're going to start with these two here. We have a V1 and a V2 site, and obviously the V1 would happen first. The V2 would happen after that. So about turns 1 to 4 is the V1, and then anything after can be the V2. And so you plant these sites, and they cost $10 for the Germans, and it's basically a rocket attack. They take, they're as similar as a naval base or an air base, so if they want to be bombed, they can be bombed by the British or the Americans or Russians or whomever. And they have a range of 3 to fire their missiles. Oh, maybe the V1 is 2 and the V2 is 3. I'll have to look that up again. They just do a D6 damage, but they need to be fully functional. They can have no damage on them. So it's a bit of a trade-off. And with the $10 price tag, sometimes Germany shies away from these things, but it can kind of spice up the game a little bit. Also, if you attack a territory and take it that has a V1 or V2 site, they're just destroyed. You are unable to use them to attack Germany. Okay. Then we also have, for the Germans, we have their Airborne. Very similar rules to the American and the British Airborne. Okay, so they can be dropped into any non-factory, non-capital territory and do their thing, attack at a +1 on the first round of combat. Typically they cost 4, and we can only build 1 per turn. And then something else that we have, and you can just use regular infantry for this, is the Panzer Grenadiers. Now the Panzer Grenadiers, we'll just throw in a regular infantry for those. Panzer Grenadiers are units that if they are with a mech unit, we allow them to go along with the mech unit. So that can, instead of having one unit rolling forward for an attack of 1, now you got 2. And we say you can build 2 of these per turn for a cost of 3. Okay, so it is special, but you can only build 2 per round. But it does help get the German infantry up to the front, which helps things out, especially when you're running into those new Russian tanks and needing partisans and the Russian guards. So that's a bit of a reply there. And the last couple things we're going to talk about is we have our SS divisions here, and using those. The SS divisions have some rules that we're still kind of working out, similar to the Banzai rule. Especially the 22nd SS is pretty nasty. They just went, no surrender, right? Like just great guns at the enemy, and they will attack at a 2. They cost, I think they cost 5, and you just use a regular German infantry, so you can just. You just put these things on top, by the way, in case you're wondering. And so you can just use a regular infantry. They cost 5, but they attack at a 2 the entire game. And they also defend at a 3 on the first round of combat, I believe is how we do that. So they're a little tougher to crack for the first round of combat. And the other thing you can do with your SS markers is you can bring in armor, and there we have a larger tank than the normal armor that we use. Here's a regular armor, so we'll just put those together there, and so you got your big Tiger tanks there, and they are the same as the KV-1. They cost a little bit more, 7 or 8, and then they also attack at a 4. And can't blitz, I believe, with the big heavy tanks anyway. Okay, but these guys can, and you can only build 1 of those per round after turn 4. Oh, and that's the same with the KV-1. I guess I should probably do that. Russians in your rear, look out! But you can only build these after turn 4 because they just weren't around then. And the last thing we'll look at here is move the tanks off to the side, is an Africa Corps little marker. And with the Africa Corps, just make sure you guys can see that. Hey, Panzer Grenadier, there you go. With the Africa Corps, anytime you get a German infantry into Africa, you get this token for free. And you can just place it underneath, and now it attacks at a 2. So just a little bit more of a punch, thanks to Mr. Rommel, and hopefully push through the British lines. Well, folks, I really appreciate you watching, and there are some other pieces that I'll bring up. I just thought that was enough for one little video here, and we're also going to be doing a little video on optional neutral navies and whatnot, that can cause some grief. So when you're going to take over certain places, sometimes their navies might show up and cause you some grief if they are pro-allied or pro-axis. And then even the strict neutrals, we work this kind of stuff in. Again, thanks again for watching, and we'll give you guys another video as soon as we can. All right, take care.